Hello, my name is Livy Owen, and I am going to be talking about pandemics and how they pertain to microbiology and microbes as a whole. So first I want to talk about the concept of a pandemic in general. According to the Oxford Dictionary, a pandemic can be described as a disease prevalent across the whole country or world. This infographic that I have over here, I think is really interesting to look at because um, I know for me personally, COVID-19 was so impactful. It felt like that was the end of the world, like that was the worst thing that ever happened. But you can actually see that it is not the worst pandemic that we have experienced or gone through. Um, and also, this infographic was made in 2020, May 22nd of 2020. So it is not necessarily up to date with the death toll and everything like that. So that is something to keep in mind. Um, but however, these are the most impactful pandemics for as of 2022. And pandemics have been impacting this world for several decades. So next, I want to talk about pandemics and microbes. So the one of the main things I want to talk about during this is a pathogen. A pathogen is an organism that causes disease, as we all have learned this year. And we all have also learned that pathogens have the capability to kill. I remember one thing that really stuck with me throughout this class was the concept that pathogens have killed more people than wars have. I think that is just such an interesting concept to think that such a tiny organism can do that much damage. Um, I also want to talk about the fact that several pandemics have been caused or started due to pathogens, because they are spread so easily, which I will get into in a later slide. Our immune system is full of microbes, but when a pathogen enters, it quite literally changes everything. Pathogens can weaken our immune system and they will continue to replicate until they have taken over. I think that was really interesting to learn about because the replication that occurs when in the body is what causes these diseases to be so impactful. Another thing to note is that pathogens cannot survive without a host. I thought that was interesting. And then this quote up top, if a microbe is contagious before a person is seriously ill while the disease is still incubating, then there's a higher potential for pandemic spread. I thought this was really interesting to read, especially considering that with COVID-19, what we just went through, a lot of people had the virus but did not know and were not aware that they had it because their symptoms had not shown up yet. However, they were spreading it still. Next, I want to talk about how pathogens are spread. So, the first way pathogens can be spread is through skin contact. I thought this was interesting, especially just considering that, if we cough into our elbow, sneeze into our elbow, or hands, whatever it is, if someone touches that skin that you have just contaminated, then that is something that can cause that other person to fall ill and it can inhibit that pathogen as well. I thought that was really interesting. Another way is by airborne particles. Again, with the coughing and sneezing, if you cough or sneeze in the air or even into your hands or your elbows and not all of it catches, you can be passing those pathogen particles on to other people. The last one I want to talk about is surface contact. So with this one, it's more just like if you touch a table, someone comes up and touches that same table, you could potentially be infecting someone if you had those pathogens. Next, I want to talk about COVID-19. I decided to talk about this because we have all experienced this, we've all lived through it, and it was crazy. But it is claimed that COVID-19 came from a thumb-sized bat that was found in a cave. Now, I know there were some speculations about if it was from a lab and the lab got released or something like that. But from what I looked up and what I researched, I found that COVID came from this bat. According to the CDC, currently 6.4 million people have died from this disease. Vaccines for this disease were introduced on August 23rd of 2021, and people were very, very precautious with this vaccine because it is considered a new vaccine. However, the COVID-19 vaccine works by obtaining material from this virus, injecting it, and then it will instruct our cells on how to create a protein that is specific to the virus. Next, I want to talk about vaccines within. Sorry, I had a mix-up, so I'm just going back to where I was. So I next want to talk about vaccines. Vaccines are crucial to slowing the spread of disease, especially within pandemics. I remember that was one of the biggest things I heard during the COVID-19 pandemic was that it's not going to end the disease, but it will slow the spread of it, and that is what will end the pandemic. So the first vaccine I want to talk about is the mRNA vaccine. The mRNA vaccine works by injecting lab-made mRNA, and then that mRNA will teach our cells how to make protein so that our cells will remember to trigger an immune response. This concept really reminds me almost of the old friends hypothesis. Thinking back to how when you are exposed to things early on, then your body will remember how to react and how to handle them. I just thought that really reminded me of how amazing our immune systems are at comprehending and remembering things such as this. The next one I want to talk about is an influenza vaccine. So an influenza vaccine, otherwise known as a flu shot, is not as mandated or as preached as the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine is. The flu shot is known as a seasonal shot, and most people tend to get it in the winter. But this influenza vaccine uses a deactivated or weakened strain of influenza virus in order to teach your body how to recognize the protein to fight against it in the future. The influenza vaccine and mRNA vaccine are actually quite similar in the way of what they do. The vaccine itself is quite different. However, the way that your body will still remember and still recall to fight against these type of things is very interesting, especially considering that these are two completely different vaccinations. So, in conclusion, pandemics have been impacting this world for a long time. Microbes, vaccines, pathogens are all great examples of how pandemics can correlate within microbiology. And then next, I just have my works cited. So that was my presentation on pandemics, especially within the microbial world. I think that it was really interesting to be able to do this research project and find out all the different vaccines and things that pertain to that. And I felt that it was very informative and beneficial to my